The last time all three of my children sat around my table, they smiled like strangers and left like thieves. It was a Sunday dinner, the kind I used to cherish. Spaghetti and meatballs, my late husband David's favorite, his recipe passed down from his grandmother. I had the good china out, the candles lit, the house filled with the soft smell of garlic and rosemary. But underneath it all, something felt off. Andrew, my oldest, came in first, briefcase in hand like always. He kissed my cheek without really looking at me. Rachel arrived next, her perfume too strong, her smile too wide. Luke trailed behind as usual, sunglasses still on even though the sun had already dipped below the hill. He hugged me quickly, then pulled out his phone before I even finished saying hello. "I made your favorite," I said, trying to find warmth in my voice. "Homemade marinara, just like your dad used to love." They barely acknowledged it. We sat, we passed bread. We talked, kind of. They asked how I was doing, how I was feeling, their tone a little too cautious, like they were walking around a version of me that might break. Then Rachel reached into her purse, that red one I gave her last Christmas, and slid a folder across the table. Cream-colored, thick, too formal. "We've been talking," she said, "and we think it's time to make some plans for your future." Andrew nodded, his voice calm, rehearsed. "Just to make sure everything's secure. In case something happens." Luke leaned forward. "You've been forgetting things lately, haven't you?" I felt it then, this heaviness in my chest that had nothing to do with age. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing their respect, their trust, maybe their love, and they weren't here to protect me. They were here to prepare for my absence, or worse, rush it. I didn't touch the pen they left on top of the folder. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at them one by one and said, "Not tonight." They left an hour later. No hugs, no love you, just silence. The kind that lingers long after the front door closes. If you've ever felt betrayed by the very people you gave your life to, stay with me. Like, share, subscribe. Because what came next, they never saw coming. 3 days after that dinner, I forgot the name of the neighbor I'd known for 20 years. I was watering the roses, David's roses, the ones he planted the first summer we moved in, when she walked by with her little dachshund, smiling like always. I smiled back, but her name just vanished, right there on my tongue, gone. It was the third time that week something had slipped through the cracks of my mind, so I made an appointment, quietly. No one needed to know. The doctor's office smelled like disinfectant and old magazines. The walls were beige, dull enough to make you feel small. The nurse who called my name looked like she should still be in high school. I followed her anyway, clutching my purse like it could keep me together. Dr. Patel was kind, too kind, the kind that made me brace myself. "It's early," he said gently, flipping through test results I didn't understand. "Mild cognitive impairment. It doesn't mean you're going to lose everything, but we should monitor closely. Start thinking ahead." Ahead. The word sat in my throat like a stone. As I stood to leave, I spotted someone in the hallway. Luke, my youngest, my baby who used to cry when I left him at preschool. He was leaning against the wall outside the exam room, half hidden behind his phone, scrolling, smirking at something on the screen. "Luke?" I asked, surprised. He looked up, caught off guard. "Hey, Mom, I just thought I'd stop by, see how it went. I didn't tell you I had an appointment." He hesitated for half a beat. "Rachel mentioned it." No, she didn't, because I hadn't told any of them. My chest tightened, but I smiled. That's what women like me do. We smile through the gut punches. Back home, I tried to shake it off. I made tea, I folded laundry. I looked for the blue envelope where I kept David's last birthday card to me. His handwriting always calmed me. Instead, I found a folder shoved behind the file cabinet. It was clean, new, legal-looking. Inside were documents I'd never seen before. Property transfer forms, deeds, my name, my signature, except it wasn't my signature. The curves were too smooth, the slant too upright. It looked close, but it wasn't mine. My hands went cold. I called Rachel. No answer. I called Andrew. "Mom," he said, too casual, "it's just precautionary. We didn't want anything to get tangled if, you started getting worse." "If?" I asked. "We were just trying to help," he replied. That line again, always with a tone that made it sound like I should thank them. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. That night, I sat in David's old recliner and stared at the fireplace. I thought about all the things I'd given up for them. I left my job as a paralegal to stay home with Andrew when he got sick at age 6. I sold my mother's bracelet to help Rachel cover a semester in New York. I canceled vacations, missed weddings, worked nights at the diner when Luke moved back in just for a few months, and stayed for 2 years. I carried this family on my back like it was sacred. I never complained. I never asked for anything back. And now, they were slowly erasing me. Not with cruelty, with convenience, with calm voices and printed papers and pens I never picked up. But it didn't stop there. A week later, while looking for an old utility bill, I came across something else. A letter from my father's estate, tucked inside an old envelope yellowed with age. David and I never had much, but my father had left behind a small trust, set up to transfer to me after my mother passed. It wasn't huge, but it would have helped, especially during the years David was sick. I remembered never receiving it. I thought maybe there'd been a mix-up. Life got busy. I was grieving. I let it go. But attached to the letter was a note from the bank, dated 12 years ago, signed off. Claimed, withdrawn, by Andrew. I checked the name twice. It was there, clear as day. He'd taken it quietly, legally, while I was scraping together change for medications and selling our anniversary ring to fix the roof. No one told me. No one offered to help. No one said thank you. This wasn't care. This wasn't love. This was a slow, calculated erasure. And for the first time in my life, I felt something new rise in my chest. Not sadness, not confusion, resolve. It was Melissa Grant who helped me remember who I used to be. She was the guest speaker at the community center a year ago, barely in her 30s, crisp suit, sharp mind. Most people didn't pay much attention to her talk on elder law, wills, trusts, and asset protection. I did. Not because I thought I'd need her, but because something about the way she spoke made me feel seen. So when I called her office and said, "This is Evelyn Carter. I need to make some changes, and I need it kept quiet," she didn't ask questions. She just said, "Come in tomorrow. I'll be ready." We worked together for 3 weeks. Every meeting, I showed up with a notebook, a pen, and a calm determination I hadn't felt in years. Melissa rewrote my will, established an irrevocable trust, and reviewed every document they had touched or might touch. She combed through my finances, restructured my power of attorney, and added layers of protection my children would never be able to unravel. By the time we were done, my assets were locked down tighter than Fort Knox, and I hadn't said a word to any of them. I still answered Rachel's texts with smiley faces and, "I'm fine, sweetie." I still let Luke swing by with store-bought muffins and ask fake casual questions like, "Do you ever get confused driving now?" I even told Andrew when he called about refinancing just to help out that I'd think about it. They thought I was slipping. I was sharpening. 4 weeks later, I invited them to dinner. "Just us," I said on the phone. "A little something special." They all came, of course, punctual, dressed nicely, eyes gleaming with quiet expectation. Rachel brought wine. Andrew brought his confidence. Luke brought nothing but that fake grin. The house was spotless, candles lit, Sinatra on the record player, the scent of apple cobbler warming in the oven. I served their childhood favorites, mashed potatoes, honey-glazed carrots, meatloaf the way David used to like it. I even used our wedding china, the white porcelain with the tiny gold vines we only ever took out for Christmas or funerals. They laughed, they relaxed, they thought they'd won. When dessert was done, I stood slowly, my joints cracking louder than I expected. I walked to the sideboard and picked up 3 envelopes, thick and sealed, with their names written in my careful handwriting. "I have something for you," I said, placing the envelopes in front of them. Andrew's brow furrowed. Rachel smiled like she wasn't sure if she should. Luke didn't move. "I've made some changes," I continued, "to the will, the trust, the house." Silence. The kind that stretches and tightens across a room. "What kind of changes?" Andrew asked, already defensive. "The kind that protect what I built." I turned to him first. 12 years ago, you took what my father left me, without a word, while I was struggling, and you watched." His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "To you, Rachel," I said, my voice steady. "You speak about legacy and beauty and art, but when it came to mine, you saw an address. You called it a plan. I call it a betrayal." She blinked hard, the first crack in her composure. "And Luke," I said, turning last, "you used to cry when I left the room. Now you laugh as you leave with pieces of me. You think being the youngest gives you immunity. It doesn't." You didn't just try to take my house, I said, louder now. You tried to erase me while I was still here. Their reactions came in waves. Rachel's eyes filled, but she said nothing. Andrew's jaw clenched tight. Luke scoffed. Mom, he said, standing, you're overreacting. You're not thinking clearly. I smiled at him, a quiet, final smile. I've never thought more clearly in my life. Andrew grabbed his envelope, tore it open, read silently, then again, slower. His face lost its color. This is locked, he said, looking up. You can't. I can, I said, and I did. I was going to pay you back, he added, quieter now. No, I said, you were never going to pay me back, but you'll remember that you didn't. Rachel looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. Maybe for the first time in years, she was seeing me not as Mom, but as Evelyn, a woman who once had dreams, a spine, a voice. And then I delivered the final blow. The house, I said, placing my hands on the table, is no longer in the will. It's been donated. They blinked. To a shelter, I continued, for women like me. Women who were used up, ignored, and nearly erased by the very people they raised. This home was built with love. It should still be filled with it. They all spoke at once then, accusations, disbelief, guilt dressed up as outrage. Luke cursed. Rachel begged. Andrew threatened to have someone look into this. But I just stood there, hands folded neatly in front of me. You thought I was fading, I said, but I was rewriting the ending. And then I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and let the sound of their chaos fade behind me like static. That night, after they were gone, I stood by the window with the curtains open, watching the moonlight spill across the front lawn. It was still my house, but for the first time in a long time, I knew I didn't have to stay in it to reclaim it. I had already taken it back, not with anger, with truth. The apartment is smaller, quieter, and full of light. It doesn't creak the way the old house did. There's no echo of footsteps I no longer trust, no hallway where I wait for phone calls that never come. Here, it's just me, and that's enough. I've traded the big backyard for a balcony with 2 potted plants and a wind chime that sings only when it wants to. I make tea in the morning. I read again, not to pass the time, but to feel it. And when I forget where I placed my keys or what day it is, I no longer panic. I breathe. I remember what matters. One afternoon, a letter arrived in a pale blue envelope. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Rachel. Inside, just a single page. You were right. I thought I was protecting you, but I was really protecting my own convenience. I forgot you were a person before you were our mother. I'm sorry for seeing you as fragile instead of whole. I'm sorry for forgetting what you gave up and how quietly you did it. I hope you found peace, even if it's without us. There were no tears. I didn't feel the urge. What I felt instead was something I couldn't quite name, something stronger than forgiveness, softer than rage. Maybe it was release. A few weeks later, I visited the shelter. My old house looked the same from the outside, but inside, it breathed different. The living room was now a reading room, with warm lighting, soft armchairs, and a bookshelf filled with donated novels. On the wall, beneath a small framed photo of a garden, was a plaque, in honor of Evelyn Carter, a home remembered. I stood in the doorway a long while. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. Now and then, women stop me in the grocery store, at the pharmacy, by the post office. They touch my hand, look me in the eye, and whisper, "Thank you." They tell me pieces of their stories, the sons who took control, the daughters who called it care, the silence they swallowed. I listen. And I remember every word, because I didn't just fight for myself. I became a voice for women who forgot they were allowed to speak. They thought I'd forget, but I remembered everything. And now, they'll never forget me. If this story made you feel seen, please share it. Comment if you've ever felt like someone tried to erase you. And don't forget to subscribe, because your voice deserves to be heard too.